Just weeks after Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz battled in a superb Wimbledon final, the tennis world has suffered a major blow. As the 2025 Canadian Open closes in, yet another big name drops out following Novak Djokovic, Jannik Sinner, and Jack Draper. Much to the disappointment of fans worldwide, Carlos Alcaraz has announced his withdrawal from the tournament in Toronto. This results in 4 of the top 10 ATP players dropping out of the biggest tournaments of this summer. Although the reasons range from injury to fatigue, the news didn't sit well with fans. Carlos Alcaraz is used to tight schedules. Despite being 22, he's already won 5 Grand Slams and gone deep into almost every major tournament this season. In 2025 alone, he made an impressive record of 48 wins and 6 losses. He lifted the Roland Garros trophy, and he made it to the Wimbledon finals. In fact, Alcaraz made it to at least the semifinals in almost every ATP Master 1000 competition he played. He may seem like a tennis machine, but even machines need maintenance. Just 9 days after losing to Jannik Sinner, Alcaraz shared a message on his social media. After many consecutive weeks of competition without rest, I will not be able to play in Toronto this year. I have small muscle issues, and I need to recover physically and mentally for what comes next. To the tournament and to my fans in Canada, I am very sorry. I will see you next year. No true fan was thrilled that Alcaraz won't play, but the decision is understandable. Both physical and emotional tolls were heavy for him this season. In fact, the former world number 2, Alex Corretja, publicly advised Carlos to skip the Canadian Open entirely. I just hope he doesn't go to Toronto. I say this with all affection and respect for the Canadian tournament, but I think Carlos needs to recover from all these efforts now. The advice was heard and accepted, and Carlos Alcaraz isn't alone. Who is the only player right now to be more exhausted than Alcaraz? None other than Jannik Sinner. Sinner had a dream year. He won the 2024 Nitto ATP Finals. He dominated Djokovic in the semis and overcame Alcaraz in the final to take home his 2nd Grand Slam at Wimbledon. The cherry on top, he became the world number 1. And yet, he'll miss Toronto entirely. The National Bank Open will happen without Sinner, as his astonishingly successful year also earned him an elbow injury in the match against Grigor Dimitrov. To cite him, I'm really disappointed to be missing the National Bank Open in Toronto, especially as I have such fond memories of playing in Canada. Winning that title in Toronto 2 years ago was the start of a really special moment for me. But after speaking with my team, I have to prioritize my health. And he's probably right. In 2023, he won his first Masters 1000 trophy in Toronto, and the victory set the tone for his rise to stardom. That said, the US Open is starting in a few weeks, and the smart decision here is to focus on recovery rather than good memories. After all, building a legacy in tennis is a marathon, not a sprint. The withdrawal of Novak Djokovic from the 2025 Canadian Open is even less surprising. The 38-year-old tennis legend has skipped the event several times. He hasn't played in Canada for more than 6 years, as his body is less durable than in his prime years. But Djokovic is far from a faded star, and many had hoped he'd get on board. He showed that he still has mastery over the court at Wimbledon, making it to the semifinals and giving Sinner a run for his money. Yes, Djokovic showed signs of discomfort, but he is still fierce, still sharp, and still Novak. But even Novak is susceptible to body fatigue. His withdrawal from the Canadian campaign was due to a worsening groin injury, and the move likely shows that Djokovic has set his eyes on Flushing Meadows. With 24 Grand Slams under his belt, the 25th would come as additional confirmation of his mythical sports reputation. This doesn't comfort tennis fans in Canada, as Djokovic is a familiar face there, owning 4 trophies from the event. Without him, the atmosphere in Toronto will surely feel hollow. For the 4th big name missing out on Canada, it has little to do with strategy and all to do with misfortune. Jack Draper, the British number 1 and the 5th-ranked tennis player in the world, picked up an arm injury that forced him to withdraw. He wrote, "After Wimbledon, I picked up an injury in my left arm. Nothing serious, but I have to make sure it recovers fully for the rest of the season. Unfortunately, I won't be able to compete in Toronto and Cincinnati. See you in NYC." 2 Masters are gone for Draper. Although his withdrawal didn't get quite as many headlines as Alcaraz or Djokovic, his absence still means that the Canadian draw has one less top-tier contender for the title. So, with the Big 4 dropping out, who's left to carry Toronto? As of now, the top seeds will likely include Alexander Zverev, the current world number 3, and Taylor Fritz, the current world number 4. Both are grand and formidable players, with Zverev even grabbing a title on Canadian soil. Still, neither man has the prestigious status of a Djokovic, Alcaraz, or Sinner. Alongside Zverev and Fritz, we'll see Lorenzo Musetti, Holger Rune, and the Canadian aspiring stars Denis Shapovalov and Felix Auger-Aliassime. But the biggest headlines, they're not about who's playing, but about who's missing. But is there a reason for so many withdrawals from the 2025 Canadian Open? Why are so many players opting out? Toronto is still among the most prestigious hardcourt competitions on the calendar. Well, at least a part of the reason is tied to the calendar. In 2025, the Canadian Open lasts 12 days instead of 7. Furthermore, it starts just 2 weeks after the Wimbledon final, which is pretty tight considering that Wimbledon is the most challenging tennis event on grass. Whoever went deep at Wimbledon simply can't make it in time, and that includes Sinner, Alcaraz, and Djokovic. Adjusting from grass to hard courts is not an easy process, and no matter how successful a player is, his body takes time to recover. Considering this, it is no wonder that these stars decided to skip the tournament altogether. This reason is particularly relevant to Djokovic. The Professional Tennis Players Association, co-founded by Novak, has been calling out scheduling issues for years. It went to such lengths that the association initiated legal actions against the ATP and WTA, accusing them of creating unsustainable demands on tennis players. If the case goes in their favor, entire tennis schedules will be restructured, and hopefully we won't see such depressing headlines showing top world players stepping back instead of pushing forward. The high withdrawal rate among the top 10 players for the 2025 Canadian Open is more than bad luck. It is a sign of transition. Carlos Alcaraz, Jack Draper, and Jannik Sinner are all under 25. They choose to preserve their bodies and go for the long run. After so many years of powering through injuries and fatigue, it comes as a welcome change for tennis. We're all for seeing the top names play more, but we also want these players to play for years to come, and their best years are still ahead of them. Rest should not be seen as a sign of weakness. It should be seen as a sign of solid strategy. The 2025 Canadian Open will have fewer headline stars than usual, that's for sure. However, this also teaches us a lesson. Future tennis stars will choose to prioritize their health and physical capacity. Tight schedules won't push them to risk more. They'll push them to play less. Perhaps this means a new era is beginning, an era where rest is not tolerated but respected. And who knows, without the spotlight on Alcaraz, Sinner, Draper, or Djokovic in Toronto this year, we might notice a star who usually gets overshadowed when the sports giants are around. The show is still worth watching. Which player's absence hits you the hardest, and who are you most excited to see step up in Toronto? Let us know in the comments below.